Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today for you guys, we are ranking the MLB teams just because the All-Star game just finished up, and the Home Run Derby's done, the All-Star game's done. So now we're going to be ranking them right before the second half of the playoffs, or the second half of the season starts. So starting off with the Colorado Rockies. They're definitely not a World Series contender. They're not a playoff team. And I'm kind of between bad team and terrible team. I'm going to put them at bad team. They have had, let me think, less than 10 wins, I'm pretty sure, at when they're not at Coors Field. They are like the worst team away in like the whole MLB. You got to win games at home, but you got to win them away too. Otherwise, you're just not going to be a good team. Also, Trevor Story's been having a bit of an off year, but he did do good in the Home Run Derby. Charlie Blackmon's not doing as good either. Garmin Marquez has been good, but other than that, they haven't really been the team that they have been the past couple years. This year, they haven't been as good. So moving on to the San Diego Padres, I'm going to put most in the World Series contender. They have to be a World Series contender. The only reason, I know their record's not like best in the league, but it's their offense. Fernando Tatis has almost 30 home runs. He's over 20 stolen bases. Not many players do things like that. They got Manny Machado, Tommy Pham, they got Trent Grisham, Jake Cronenworth. There's so many more people you can name. Will Myers, Eric Hosmer, but that's just to name a few. And their pitching has not been that great this year. But remember, guys, they have Blake Snell, former Cy Young winner. He hasn't had a good year. He's had an off year, but he deserves to be talked about a little bit more. And I think he might be able to have a turnaround second half, as well as Yu Darvish has been pretty good. He made it to the All-Star game, but he was injured. Hopefully he's back to normal and ready to pitch in the second half of the season. So moving on to the Atlanta Braves, I would probably put them in playoff team, but they just lost Ronald Acuna Jr., so they are no longer a playoff team. Just to basically, Ronald Acuna. They do have Freddie Freeman still. They do have Ozzie Albies, but their pitching hasn't been too great this year. It has been good, but not as good as they usually are. And now without Acuna, who's one of their best players, they still have Freeman and Albies and Austin Riley, but I don't think they're going to be the team that makes the playoffs. But they are not going to be a bad team. They're not going to be a terrible team. All right, so moving on to Seattle Mariners. They're going with the Atlanta Braves, a decent team. They're currently third place, 3.5 games behind Oakland A's for second. They're 7 games behind the Astros for first place. Their record's good, but they don't have too many players that are really good. Mitch Haniger, Kyle Seager, but they really haven't had one of these players that's like, wow, best player in the league, But they have pretty good pitching, good bullpen, kind of, They're an average team. They're a decent team. They could be a playoff contender, but I'm just going to put them a decent team for now. Okay, moving on to Miami Marlins. Miami Marlins are probably, I would have to go with a decent team. They're not bad, but they're almost in that bad category. They're under 500, but again, they still have some good guys. They got Jazz Chisholm Jr., Jesus Aguilar. And their pitching's okay. They got Trevor Rogers, who was an all-star. The only person on the Marlins who was an all-star. And he came in, he did pretty good. I'm pretty sure he let up 1 or 2 runs in his all-star game, which is not that good, but, he is a good pitcher, and no matter what he did at the all-star game, and just making it to the all-star game is good. Dodgers, they're better than the Padres. They're a World Series contender. Just to name a few, Cody Bellinger is back and healthy. He's good. Justin Turner, Chris Taylor, Mookie Betts, and Max Muncy. Once Corey Seager comes back, they will be a great team. They have Clayton Kershaw. They have Walker Buehler, Urias, Trevor Bauer currently not playing, but when he comes back, he'll probably be good again. So they are definitely a World Series contender. You got a pretty good bullpen, great pitching, great batting. That's all you need in a team. Orioles, I'm not going to put them in terrible team, actually. I'm going to put them in bad team. They have a good player. Don't know if you guys heard of him yet. He's actually, Cedric Mullins is a surprise to everyone. Very, very underrated player. I bet if I had made an underrated players list, he would be on there. He's very fast. He can hit home runs. He can get RBIs. He can hit the ball. He's batting over 300 this year. He's batting about 311, I think, something like that. And people, the reason why he's underrated is people, just because he's an Oriole, people are like, I don't really think he's that good because he's an Oriole. He's not playing for a good team, so they don't really know. And also, Trey Mancini, he came back from cancer, and he's playing very good baseball this year. 16 home runs, and he made it to the finals in the home run derby. He sadly lost to Pete Alonso, who won his second straight home run derby. But Trey Mancini put up a great effort, so there's nothing else. So moving on to the next team, the Boston Red Sox. Boston Red Sox. Okay. They are a World Series contender again. Just to name, again, a few players, Xander Bogaerts, went 2 for 3 in the All-Star game, which is good. He had an RBI, I'm pretty sure, in the All-Star game. He played a big part in that. Also, I think they have JD Martinez too. They have some other good players. Nathan Eovaldi has been a surprise pitching. He's been good. Boston, just look at their record. They're in a pretty good division. They're in front of Tampa Bay Rays, the team that went to the World Series last year, and that brings us up to the Tampa Bay Rays. They're definitely not a World Series contender, but they are a first team that goes in that playoff team category. They're good. They're just not that World Series level. No more Blake Snell now. But their pitching's still good. No more Charlie Morton either. They still have Tyler Glass now. He's putting up great numbers. And they have batters like Austin Meadows and Joey Wendell and Randy Arozarena. So, yeah, moving on to the next team, we have the Minnesota Twins. You guys might be shocked where I'm going to put them. And I'm going to put them at the beginning of the bad category. The reason is because they were such a disappointment this year. They have great players, and they probably should be a little bit better this year. They're respected. Going into the season, I thought they would be about playoff team. But no, they have not been. Kenta Maeda, their pitcher, one of their best pitchers, probably their best pitcher maybe, hasn't been as good as he usually is this year. Also, batters like Miguel Sano, who has been good in the past, not really as good this year. Nelson Cruz is still pretty good. They have Max Kepler doing good. Byron Buxton, pretty sure he is still injured. He's good. He just has been injured, and so their pitching hasn't been too great. Their bullpen hasn't been too great either. Moving on to the next team here, we have the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm going to put them in decent team right in front of the Marlins. Rhys Hoskins has, I think, 20 home runs this year. He's also a pretty underrated player. Gets a lot of home runs. He does not bat for a very high average. Their pitchers are great. Aaron Nola has had some really good starts this year. Zach Eflin, Zach Wheeler has been really, really good this year. The Phillies' starting rotation is good. Their bullpen is pretty good as well. And the batters, you got Bryce Harper. Andrew McCutchen is still doing really good, actually. He hit a grand slam a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. Rhys Hoskins, we already said him. He's doing good. Didi Gregorius is doing pretty good. So anyways, moving on to the next team, and this one is a underrated team. They don't really get talked about. Cincinnati Reds are a playoff team. You just look at it. They have 2 All-Stars, Nick Castellanos and Jesse Winker, who have both been hitting lots of home runs this year. They've been batting in runners, RBIs, all about. They're hitting for pretty good average. The Reds have good pitching. They got Luis Castillo. No more Trevor Bauer anymore. But still, they have good pitching and good bullpen. And I think that's really what makes this Reds team a playoff contender with their ability to win games. Moving on to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And what else is there to say? Terrible team. I have to say it. They have just been playing horrible this year. David Peralta's not been too good. Eduardo Escobar has been good. But other than that, they haven't really been playing well. Their pitching's not that great. Relieving's not that great. They've been letting up a lot of runs. They've been getting blown out a lot. They lost 22-1 against the Dodgers, and they had to put Josh Reddick in as a position player, as a pitcher, and that just shows you, when a team has to use a position player, they're probably not doing too good. Moving on to the Arizona Cardinals, or St. Louis Cardinals, sorry. I really thought this was going to be a good team. I had to put them in the decent team section. I really thought, they're getting Nolan Arenado. They still have Paul Goldschmidt. Those two are going to be great together. Arenado's been good. Goldschmidt has been okay. Their pitching's not been that good, but it hasn't been bad. And same with their whole team. It hasn't been that good, but it hasn't been bad. That's why I put them in the decent team. This is probably the shortest team I've done so far, so let's move on to the next team. This team might take a while to talk about. The New York Yankees. Really, really good team this year. Well, actually, I would put them in decent. I'm going to put them in playoff team. It's just the Yankees have so much talent. You got Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, DJ LeMahieu, you got Gleyber Torres, you got Urshela, and you got Clint Frazier, who's been a pretty big disappointment this year. Also, Garrett Cole has been good this year. He just played 9 innings, pitched 9 innings against the Astros. So, yeah. They should be a playoff team. They're not right now. They're not currently. I think they're going to have a strong second half. And I think they're going to make a strong run in the playoffs. And they're definitely a good team, even though they are struggling pretty good right now. They're pretty down bad. So, moving on to the New York Mets. This is a playoff team. They're pretty high up there in their division. They have a good lead to play with. Jacob deGrom is putting up numbers that we haven't seen for a while. Like, he has a very, very low ERA, lots of strikeouts. I mean, he is a great pitcher. So, also, Francisco Lindor has not been off to a very good start this year, but I feel like he's one of those players that's going to turn it around in the second half because he's a really good player. He just has not been good for the Mets. He's batting like 225 or something. So moving on to the Angels, I have to put them in playoff team. There is no question. I don't know why they are not. They're in fourth place right now, but I'm telling you, they're going to surge up the standings. In fact, the next team is my favorite team, the Oakland Athletics. I feel like they're even going to get in front of the Athletics because Shohei Ohtani is a great pitcher. He's a great batter. I mean, he does it all. There's not many players that can do it all as good as he does. So, also they got Jared Walsh and David Fletcher. And if Mike Trout comes back and he's healthy, he's going to help their team as well. Just the only reason they're not doing so good is their pitching has not been too great. But anyways, moving on to the Oakland Athletics, my favorite team. Right now, I'm going to say they are a playoff team. So, I mean, good pitching. Chris Bassett is 10-2 this year. They have some other pretty good pitchers. Frankie Montas is pretty good. Mike Fiers has not been too good this year, but he's only started not too many games. Kansas City Royals. Oh, also, before we get to the Kansas City Royals, Oakland A's batters, Matt Olson has hit over 20 home runs. I think he's up to 23 home runs. He also competed in the home run derby, and he got 23 home runs. He lost to Trey Mancini by 1 home run. Just went foul. Also, Matt Chapman's been having not a very good year. He's been striking out a lot. But they have other good players. Jed Lowry, Steven Piscotty's been okay. And then, obviously, like Sean Murphy and stuff. Okay, so moving on to the Kansas City Royals. Salvador Perez has been phenomenal. He's a good catcher. He's a good hitter. He played in the home run derby, and he lost to Pete Alonso in the first round, but he was able to put up 27 home runs, which would beat any other player in the home run derby. Crazy. Okay. Also, Michael A. Taylor has been pretty good. Whit Merrifield, named an all-star. He's good. He's leading the league. Whit Merrifield is currently leading the league in stolen bases. That's good to know. Kansas City Royals, their pitching has been okay. Brad Keller's been okay. They're a decent team, but I feel like they're going to drop to bad teams, so I'm going to put them in bad team. Right behind the Twins. I just don't know if they have all the key pieces to be a playoff team or just a decent team. I feel like they're either a decent team or a bad team. The Indians, at the beginning of the year, I'd probably put them in playoff. I'll stick them decent team. You still got Jose Ramirez, great player, great player. You have, Shane Bieber's still pretty good. But they're just, I think, an average team. They went on that big losing streak, but now they've won just a little bit. So now they're starting to get back to their normal thing. And I think they could be a playoff team. But I think if they're going to be a playoff team, they're going to have to win the division. And against those White Sox, the White Sox are a good team. Moving on to the Toronto Blue Jays, this might shock you. I'm going to put them right there in that playoff team, the end of the playoff team. And the reason I'm putting them in playoff team is... Actually, you know what? They're going to be decent team, but they're going to be the very front of decent team because they're probably not going to make the playoffs. But they have Marcus Semien, who's been very good this year. He's over 20 home runs. Vladimir Guerrero has almost 30 home runs. You got Bo Bichette. You got Teoscar Hernandez, who was in the All-Star game as well. They had 4 players in the All-Star game, I think. And then you got decent pitching, Robbie Ray, Hyunjin Ryu. So I think they're a decent team. In fact, I think they could be a playoff team next year with some of these guys. Moving on to the Chicago White Sox. I mean, they have to be World Series contenders. I mean, all they do is hit, and they are good. Billy Hamilton's really fast. He plays for the White Sox. You got Tim Anderson, who's a good player. He hits for a good average. Jose Abreu hits RBIs, hits home runs. And overall, I think this team is a team that should be able to, at least, they're definitely going to make it to playoffs. But I think that they have a chance to run. They have a run possibility. They might be able to have a chance to win the World Series or make it far in the playoffs at least. But they might have to go through the Red Sox, which Red Sox are going to be trouble. Okay, moving to the Detroit Tigers. I mean, they're a bad team. There's no way to really be nice about that. I really like the Detroit Tigers, but they haven't really got. I mean, Casey Mize is the pitcher that's been good for them this year. Actually, they had one All-Star, Gregory Soto, but Akil Badu's been okay. You know, they have a bunch of okay, decent players, but I don't think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but that's where I would put them. Houston Astros. I mean, World Series contender again. Jose Altuve's been really good at hitting home runs. I mean, he's just a great player. I mean, Carlos Correa, Michael Brantley, Ryan Presley, they all did not go to the All-Star game. So, Pittsburgh Pirates, they're a bad team. But they might be a bad team, but they had 2 really good All-Stars, Adam Frazier and Brian Reynolds, who deserve a lot more just because they're on the Pirates. As I said this for Cedric Mullins, just because they're on the Pirates doesn't mean they can't be good, and I don't think they get enough recognition. Their Pirates, I think the problem for the Pirates is their pitching is not that good. I mean, their batters are good, as I said, Reynolds and Frazier, but I think they maybe work on the pitching, and they just drafted a catcher, so maybe that will help them out. San Francisco Giants, they definitely go in the World Series contender. They're probably, in my eyes, the most underrated team in the whole league. I mean, they don't get enough credit for how much hard work they've done this year. Everyone expected them to be 3rd place probably in that division, maybe 4th. Actually, they probably expected them to be in 4th place. But Brandon Crawford and Buster Posey, who've been in the league for a while, have come back they've been playing so good this year, especially Brandon Crawford. He was an All-Star. I mean, they've had pretty good pitching, Kevin Gausman and Anthony DeSclafani, but I think they're a World Series contender. Moving on to the Milwaukee Brewers, playoff team. I mean, they got Willy Adames in that trade. They've been good ever since. They have had some good players. Christian Yelich has not been that great this year, but have had some other players to back him up. So, moving on to the Washington Nationals, they're a decent team, finding themselves at the top of the decent team category. They had many All-Stars. Max Scherzer got the start in the All-Star game. They had Trey Turner in the All-Star game as well. Also, Juan Soto, who competed in the Home Run Derby, and Kyle Schwarber made it to the All-Star game. I mean, that is a lot of All-Stars. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but I do think that they're a good team. and a team maybe to watch out for just in case they try to make a playoff run. They might be able to. They're a good enough team to do that, I think. The Cubs. The Cubs. Okay, I gotta put them in decent team this year. They expected to be good. I mean, they haven't been as good, but they still are a decent team. I mean, Anthony Rizzo's still good. Chris Bryant has been very good this year, but he might get traded. Who knows? But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I know it was a long one, but I hope you really enjoyed the rankings, the tier list so far, going into the second half of the season, and I'll see you guys in the next video.